Hello traders, welcome to the Nexoel Trading Hub YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to have a quick review on last week's forex forecast to look at how the market actually played out. To stay updated with our weekly forecast, you can do well to subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the free Telegram community. So guys, let's head to the charts. If you can remember from the last week forex forecast, in the dollar index, this is the weekly time frame. We actually expected to see price fall further to the downside to the 50% of this weekly candles week or the 25% of the monthly candle week, which is actually marked out from the monthly time frame, before we are going to actually anticipate any form of rise in price to actually face a rejection at this inversion fair value gap or within the 4-hour time frame fair value gap we marked out. You can see this horizontal red line is actually from the 4-hour time frame. So this will determine if price will break through the inversion fair value gap on the weekly time frame and close above it. Then we are going to be expecting to see a pullback based on lower time frame to determine if price will further push to the upside to come raid the buy side liquidity, or we could just see price face rejection and then drop further to the downside. And then now you can see what we are seeing from the weekly time frame is the price is what's dropping to the downside. And then you can see clearly that last week price actually gave us a bearish momentum, even though we can see that we have this bullish move to the upside that mitigated the weekly inversion fair value gap. Price furtherwards dropped to the downside. So what we are going to see from the lower time frame is that price did not close above the weekly inversion fair value gap. Hence, why you're going to see we have more momentum to the downside. This is just for review purposes. We're going to actually release the forecast for the coming week by Sunday tomorrow. So let's drop to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. Now you can see this is our weekly inversion fair value gap, and then this is actually the 4-hour zone where we are expecting to see price actually push to, and then this will determine if you're going to have momentum to the upside or to the downside. This is the weekly inversion fair value gap, so we're expecting to see price. This was the candle that was from last week Friday. So we're expecting more bearish move to the downside. What you're going to see is that now price did not really provide that bearish move we expected to see price drop to the 50% of the weekly candle week or the 25% before we see the rise in price, the weekly inversion or the 4-hour zone before we could see price fall or break through and then retest our support and then push to the upside. So now what you can see is we're having rejection of price within the weekly inversion fair value gap. Price did not close above it. Price did not break through. We have a forced breakout because this is just a week. And then you can see that what price fell to the downside. On Thursday, you can see we actually have rejection within this other block that price rejected, but then we can see price further push to the downside. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. Now here we are in the 4-hour time frame. If you can remember, I showed us guys this breakout block where we're expecting to see price will return to mitigate it, which is also having the 50% of the weekly week candle level before we could see the rise of price to this level before we can actually determine if price will drop or price will break through, retest as support and then push further to the upside. So you can see price return close to the zone, but then price didn't really mitigate the zone. Then we have price push to the upside within the weekly inversion fair value gap, and then you can see the massive drop of price. So the CPI news sponsored this momentum movement to the downside, this massive expansion to the downside. So this is what you can see played out in the dollar index. Let's actually check the 1-hour time frame. I actually showed us that we are actually having a bearish momentum in the 1-hour time frame. Hence why I expected to see price could possibly rise to this level before we could see price fall to the downside. And then if price breaks through it, then we could find it as support and then price push to the upside. But then price still gave the bullish move, but not to the expected level. And then price gave the bearish move to the downside. So guys, this is a review for the dollar index. Let's check the other pairs we actually analyzed last week to actually see how they all played out. So this is the GBP USD pair. So let's also have a quick review on this. Hey guys, if you're following this weekly forecast and also following the weekly review, you're really going to have an understanding on how to analyze the markets. So I would encourage that you do follow all our weekly forex forecasts and also the weekly reviews. This would enable you gain mastery in analyzing the market. So this is actually from the monthly time frame. You're going to see this is a fair value gap, but this is actually the weekly time frame. And this is actually the mean threshold of that level. So what I projected last week was to actually see, this is actually last week candle. Now this is the week that just concluded on Friday. So we actually had this candle. I was expecting to see price give us more bullish move to the upside, and then the possibility of price also facing rejection here and then dropping to the downside. So I was looking at the 4-hour time frame zone, but I should have actually paid more attention to the weekly zone to possibly see that price fall to this level. So what we're going to experience at this level will determine if price would fall to the downside, erase the sell side liquidity, or we further see just price push to the upside. But then you can see price just gave just a little bearish move, and then we can see price projected to the upside. So this is actually a higher time frame. We're not going to really see clear bearish move before the bullish. So let's actually drop to the daily and then down to the 4-hour time frame. Now you can see in the daily time frame, you can see we have price sweep that liquidity with this candle. So I actually expected to see price rejects at this level, and then we have that fall of price to the downside. My expectation was actually to see price fall to this zone, and this level would help us determine if we're still going to have price move to the upside or to the downside, raid the sell side liquidity. But then what we can see is price just give us just a very minor bearish move on Monday and then on Tuesday. Then you can see Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was giving us a bullish momentum. So guys, that was what was projected. So let's actually drop to the 4-hour time frame. So this is actually the 4-hour time frame. So you can see why I expected a bearish move before we could anticipate a bullish move. It is due to this fair value gap here, and then you can also see that now price came to that level, faced rejection, but then price did not drop to this level or 4-hour time frame zone I was looking at. Then we can see the reversal when CPI release came out, and then you can see we have this bullish move because we actually experienced bearish move in the dollar index. Let's actually drop to the 1-hour time frame. So in the 1-hour time frame, you would have actually caught a good bearish move, possible 1:3, risk to reward of 1:3 to the downside, which is not bad. So this was what we actually projected, and you can see how price played. Let's check out the Euro USD. So this is the Euro USD. If you can recall from the last week forex forecast, we had this weekly inversion fair value gap. We had the last week candle form. So we're expecting to see price face rejection at this level to the downside, and then we actually pay attention to the reaction we're going to find within the weekly inversion fair value gap to determine if price will continue to the downside or push higher to the upside. Then you can see we had that rejection to the downside because you can see this weak movement to the downside. The price did not mitigate the weekly inversion fair value gap zone, and then you can see we have a projection of price to the upside. So we had two expectations to see price possibly breaks through this, then we can start determining to see if price will run through this sell side liquidity. Then you can see last week what happened was price return, and then we have pushed to the upside. Or we drop to a lower time frame, you're going to actually see the bearish move we expected to the inversion fair value gap level. So let's drop to the daily time frame. Now you can see here's the daily time frame. we expected a bearish move to the downside due to this fair value gap, and then you can see this order block here. Now what you're going to see is this is actually last week Friday. Price only swept the high. Price did not really mitigate the fair value gap, and then we have price fell to the downside. Price did not return really into the weekly inversion fair value gap, and then you can see we had that bullish move. And what you should pay attention to again is that once price also came to the order block, you can see price faced rejection at the order block before we had continuation to the upside. You can see price use the fair value gap more of like a support level, and then price continued to the upside. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame to look at price delivery more. So you can see in the 4-hour time frame, we have this level as an inversion fair value gap in the 4-hour time frame. You can see it here. This is actually that fair value gap in the daily time frame. Now what you can see is price. So just the way I told you guys, we're expecting to see price mitigate this level and then drop. But then price did not really return into it, and you can see price drop before giving us the push to the upside. Now you can also see in the 4-hour time frame, price used this inversion fair value gap in confluence with this fair value gap as a support level when price closed above the fair value gap zone, and see price return retested it as support, and then price pushed to the upside. In case you don't understand what an inversion fair value gap stands for, there is a video in the YouTube channel that you can actually go watch and understand how to trade based on the application of inversion fair value gap. So this is what I have to show us guys in the Euro USD pair. So we're going to check the gold pair and then the USD JPY and the USD card. This is gold, and if you can recall, based on last week forex forecast, I told us we should expect price rejection at this rejection block to see price return to mitigate this level, which I actually mapped out from the daily time frame if I could remember. So we are to expect to see the reaction of price here to determine if price continues to the bullish side or price breaks through, and then we see a bearish sell move to the downside. But then what you can see is price actually mitigated this level, and then you can see that we are having the push of price to the upside. Gold has been bullish. If you can recall, I stressed that last week. So I told us to just expect the bearish move to this level, and then we should anticipate to see the possibility of price going bullish when price is about to close within the week. So you can see that played out based on the weekly time frame. So let's check the daily time frame. So yeah, in the daily time frame, we can actually see this was the level I marked out. So I regarded this as a mitigation zone because this is the last buy candle before this sell move, but price did not sweep this low points. So I expected to see rejection of price here because you can see this candle here was actually Friday's candle. So we expected a little push of price to the upside to mitigate the fair value gap more before we could see price return. And this level will determine if we are going bullish or bearish. Now you can see price return to that level, respected the level, and then give us a bullish move to the upside. And what you can see is that rejection block in the weekly time frame is actually in confluence to this other block. And then you can see how price is still facing rejection here. So guys, just stay tuned. We're going to actually release the forecast for the coming week. This is just a review. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. You can clearly see that zone I was looking at. And then you can see how price was facing rejection here, and then price gave the bullish move. So we anticipated the bearish move to look up for a bullish move, or if price actually breaks through this level, we're expecting to see a return and then a fall of price. So now guys, let's check out the USD JPY and then the USD card, and then that ends this review, and then you can anticipate the weekly forecast for the coming week on Sunday. So guys, this is actually the USD JPY. My mistake with the USD JPY was actually considering the daily time frame order block, or let me call that the man zone, the last sell candle I saw before the buy move, as the zone to consider. And then I was expecting to see rejection here. Price should push further to the upside. But then you can also see that we had a bearish move in the dollar index based on the CPI. And then you can see that bearish move also happening in the USD JPY pair. Then you can see based on the weekly time frame, this is where we actually have an order block, because you can see this is the sell candle before the buy move to the upside. That is where you can see price is actually reacting at currently. Price fill up this fair value gap here. So my perspective was more based on the daily time frame. So let's actually check the daily time frame. Now you can see the daily time frame here. This was the level I paid attention to, expecting to see price push to the upside. But you can see price broke through it, and then now prices were expecting the weekly zone. So guys, this was what happened in the USD JPY. Let's drop to the 4-hour time frame. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. So I was expecting price swept this high. I was expecting to see return and then the rise of price to the upside. Actually, the return occurred, but price did not really return into this one. This was actually that return. But then price push, and then you can see during the CPI, we had this momentum movement to the downside. So guys, let's check the USD card. So for the USD card, based on the weekly time frame, I was actually expecting to see price push further more to sweep the sell side liquidity, which we can see that actually price swept the sell side liquidity. I was looking for price to come into this zone, this order block resting here, but to mitigate this week, then we could possibly consider a bullish move. So you can see that we actually have the sweep of that low points, and then price tapped into the zone, and then you can see price faced this rejection to the upside. So let's actually check out the daily time frame. So this is actually the daily time frame. So you can see we have this demand zone here, which actually I was paying more attention to see price fall to before we have a push of price to the upside. And you can see based on 4-hour time frame, we're going to see demand level here, and then you can see price was just reacting to it. So the USD card is actually in a range, so I expected to see price drop, sweeps this zone to the downside into this particular zone before you could see push of price to the upside. So based on the 4-hour time frame, so we actually saw this fair value gap acting as the supply zone to look out for, and then to anticipate the push of price to the downside. So let me drop to the 1-hour time frame where we expected a bearish move to the downside, but then you can see how the market was just in this particular range. It was just choppy. So you can see in the 1-hour time frame, I expected to see price sweep last week's high. This is Friday's high, mitigate the mean threshold, and then we have the fall. And you can see that happen, but then this is really a bad market movement. Price swept the sell side liquidity. So guys, this is all about last week forecast.